Every dollar you spend today follows a path designed 155 years ago by a man you've probably never studied in detail. In 1870, John D. Rockefeller made a decision that would fundamentally alter how wealth moves through society. He chose not to compete. Instead, he built something far more powerful, a machine that makes competition irrelevant. That machine is still running. It's operating in your pocket right now. It's processing your purchases, managing your data, controlling your choices, and the fascinating part, most people don't even know they're inside it. Welcome to Finance Folder, where we decode the financial systems that shape your reality. Today, we're going inside the architecture of the most successful wealth concentration mechanism ever designed. By the end of this, you'll see why Jeff Bezos, Larry Page, and Mark Zuckerberg aren't innovators who happen to get rich. They're architects who read the same blueprint Rockefeller drew in 1870 and executed it with precision. This isn't conspiracy, this is structure. Let's begin. John D. Rockefeller was born into chaos. His father was literally a con artist who sold snake oil and abandoned the family for months at a time. His mother held the household together through rigid Baptist discipline and absolute moral conviction. Young John absorbed both sides. From his father, he learned that perception shapes reality. From his mother, he learned that conviction justifies action. By age 16, he was working as an assistant bookkeeper in Cleveland, earning 50 cents a day. He was meticulous, obsessive, he checked every column twice. He questioned every discrepancy. His employers noticed. Within 2 years, he was offered a partnership in a commodity trading firm. But Rockefeller saw something his partners didn't. In 1859, Edwin Drake struck oil in Titusville, Pennsylvania. The rush was immediate. Thousands of speculators flooded into western Pennsylvania with dreams of instant wealth. They drilled, they gambled, they won and lost fortunes in weeks. Rockefeller watched this chaos from Cleveland and made a calculation that would change economic history. He saw that drilling was speculation, refining was business. Drillers depended on luck, on geology, on timing. Refiners depended on process, on efficiency, on execution. Rockefeller didn't want to gamble, he wanted to build. So in 1863, at age 24, he invested $4,000 into a Cleveland oil refinery. That refinery became his laboratory. While other refiners focused on output, Rockefeller focused on cost. He measured everything. How much oil was lost in processing? How much heat was wasted? How much time elapsed between steps? He discovered that tiny improvements compounded. Saving 1 cent per gallon on 1,000 gallons daily meant $10 per day. Over a year, $3,650. Over 10 years, $36,500, and that was just one improvement. Rockefeller made hundreds. By 1865, his refinery was the largest in Cleveland. But Cleveland had 30 refineries. Competition kept margins razor thin. Most refiners lived on the edge of bankruptcy. One bad quarter meant liquidation. Rockefeller refused to accept this volatility. He refused to let his fate depend on market fluctuations controlled by others. So he made a decision that would define his entire career and create the template for modern corporate structure. He decided to own everything, not just refining, everything. Most refiners bought barrels from cooperages. Rockefeller asked, why buy when we can make? He built his own barrel factory. While competitors paid 25 cents per barrel, Rockefeller's cost dropped to 15 cents, a 40% reduction. On 10,000 barrels, that's $1,000 saved per day. Most refiners hired wagons to transport oil. Rockefeller bought his own wagons, then his own tank cars, then negotiated directly with railroads. He offered them guaranteed volume in exchange for reduced rates. The railroads agreed, but Rockefeller went further. He negotiated rebates, not just discounts on his own shipments, but kickbacks on competitor shipments. Every time a rival refiner shipped oil, the railroad paid Rockefeller a percentage. He was profiting from his competitor's existence. This wasn't just efficiency, this was strategic architecture. Rockefeller was building a system where every action his competitors took strengthened his position. They ship oil, he gets paid. They buy barrels, his costs are lower. They negotiate with railroads, his contracts are already locked in. Most refiners sold to distributors who sold to retailers. Rockefeller eliminated the middlemen. He built his own distribution network, his own sales force. Direct relationships with retailers, then directly with consumers. Every layer he removed was profit he captured. By 1870, Rockefeller had transformed a simple refinery into an integrated industrial machine. He controlled barrels, transport, storage, distribution, and sales. This was vertical integration, the strategy that would become the foundation of every major corporation for the next 150 years. But controlling the supply chain wasn't enough. Rockefeller looked at the 30 refineries still operating in Cleveland and saw waste, duplicate equipment, redundant operations, competition that served no purpose except to fragment the market. He saw opportunity. In January 1872, Rockefeller initiated what historians later called the Cleveland Massacre. He approached every refinery owner in the city with an offer. Sell to me now at a fair price, or watch your business die slowly. Some owners laughed. They'd been in business for years. They had relationships, customers, reputations. Rockefeller had a response prepared. He dropped his kerosene prices below production cost. His competitors, who lacked his vertical integration, lost money on every gallon sold. They had three options: match his prices and bleed cash until bankruptcy, maintain their prices and lose all customers to Rockefeller's cheaper kerosene, or sell to Rockefeller before their businesses became worthless. Most chose option 3. By April 1872, 3 months later, Rockefeller controlled 25 of Cleveland's 26 refineries. His market share jumped from 10% to nearly 25% of all American refining capacity. In 90 days, this was horizontal consolidation, buying or destroying every competitor until the market itself disappears. But the Cleveland massacre was just the beginning. Rockefeller looked at the national landscape. Refineries in New York, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Baltimore, all fragmented, all competing, all vulnerable. Over the next 8 years, Rockefeller executed the same strategy in every major refining center in America. He arrived in each city with superior efficiency from vertical integration, secret railroad contracts that guaranteed lower shipping costs, and the willingness to sustain losses longer than any competitor could survive. By 1879, Standard Oil controlled 90% of American oil refining. 90%. That's not market dominance. That's market elimination. But here's what makes Rockefeller's achievement truly remarkable. He understood that monopolies face a critical vulnerability. They're illegal. The public hates them. Politicians target them. Eventually, governments break them apart. Rockefeller needed a structure that could maintain control while appearing to distribute power. His lawyers invented one: the trust. In 1882, Rockefeller's legal team created the Standard Oil Trust. Here's the mechanism. Standard Oil of Ohio couldn't legally own refineries in other states, but a trust could hold stock in multiple companies across state lines. Rockefeller transferred ownership of all Standard Oil regional companies into a single trust. That trust was controlled by 9 trustees. All 9 were Rockefeller and his closest associates. The trust owned the companies. The trustees controlled the trust. Rockefeller controlled the trustees. Legally, Standard Oil of Ohio, Standard Oil of New York, Standard Oil of California were separate companies. Practically, they operated as one entity with unified strategy, coordinated pricing, and shared resources. This structure solved Rockefeller's legal problem. It also created something more powerful: a template. Within 5 years, trusts appeared in every major industry. The Sugar Trust controlled 98% of sugar refining. The Tobacco Trust controlled 93% of cigarette production. The Steel Trust controlled 67% of steel manufacturing. Every trust copied Rockefeller's structure. Every trust used his methods: vertical integration to control costs, horizontal consolidation to eliminate competition, legal structures to maintain control while distributing nominal ownership. This wasn't just business strategy. This was systemic redesign of how corporations could operate. The trust evolved into the holding company. The holding company evolved into the modern corporate parent structure. Alphabet owns Google, YouTube, DeepMind, Waymo. Meta owns Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp. Amazon owns Whole Foods, Zappos, Ring, Twitch. These aren't accidents. These are direct descendants of the Standard Oil Trust structure Rockefeller invented in 1882. By 1904, Standard Oil controlled 91% of oil refining and 85% of final kerosene sales in America. Rockefeller's personal wealth reached $900 million, equivalent to roughly $25 billion today. But that's misleading. At his peak in 1913, inflation-adjusted calculations put Rockefeller's net worth at approximately $400 billion, wealthier than Bezos, Musk, and Gates combined. The richest individual in modern recorded history. He built that wealth through structure, not luck, through systems, not speculation, through understanding that control beats competition every single time, but monopolies create enemies. By 1890, public anger toward trusts reached critical mass. Congress passed the Sherman Antitrust Act, making monopolies illegal under federal law. In 1906, journalist Ida Tarbell published her expose of Standard Oil. She documented the secret railroad rebates, the predatory pricing, the systematic destruction of competitors, the calculated manipulation of markets. Public outrage intensified. In 1909, the federal government sued Standard Oil under the Sherman Act. In 1911, the Supreme Court ruled unanimously: Standard Oil was an illegal monopoly. It must be dissolved into 34 separate companies. This should have destroyed Rockefeller. It made him richer. Here's why. When Standard Oil was broken apart, Rockefeller still owned proportional shares in all 34 successor companies. Standard Oil of New Jersey became Exxon. Standard Oil of New York became Mobil. Standard Oil of California became Chevron. Standard Oil of Indiana became Amoco. Before the breakup, Standard Oil stock traded around $600 per share. After the breakup, the combined value of shares in all 34 companies exceeded $2,000 per share. Rockefeller's wealth tripled. The breakup forced competition between the successor companies, driving efficiency and innovation. But these companies still dominated their regional markets. Breaking one national monopoly into 34 regional monopolies didn't eliminate market control. It redistributed it, and over the next century, those 34 companies gradually merged back together. Exxon and Mobil reunited in 1999. Chevron absorbed multiple Standard Oil successors. BP purchased Amoco and Standard Oil of Ohio. Today, the descendants of Standard Oil control roughly the same percentage of the oil market that Rockefeller controlled in 19. The system broke itself apart to satisfy legal requirements, then quietly reconsolidated over decades. This reveals Rockefeller's deepest insight. The monopoly wasn't Standard Oil. The monopoly was the method. Companies can be dissolved. Structures persist, and Rockefeller's structures didn't just persist, they spread. Let me show you how Amazon uses Rockefeller's playbook with precision. Amazon started in 1994 as an online bookstore. Within 5 years, Jeff Bezos began vertical integration. He built warehouses instead of using distributors. He created a logistics network instead of using shipping companies. He developed payment processing instead of using banks. He built cloud infrastructure to host his website, then sold that infrastructure to other companies. That became Amazon Web Services, generating $90 billion annually, more than Amazon's retail profit. Rockefeller controlled refineries, railroads, and distribution. Bezos controls retail, logistics, and digital infrastructure. Same blueprint, different century. Amazon also executes horizontal consolidation. When Zappos became a major shoe retailer, Amazon bought them. When Whole Foods dominated premium groceries, Amazon bought them. When Ring created the video doorbell market, Amazon bought them. When Twitch dominated game streaming, Amazon bought them. Over 100 acquisitions, but Amazon learned something Rockefeller couldn't do. When you control the marketplace, where competitors sell, you don't need to buy them, you just copy them. Third-party sellers on Amazon report their sales data to Amazon. Amazon analyzes which products succeed. Amazon creates Amazon Basics versions. Amazon promotes its versions above the originals in search results. The original seller trains the market. Amazon harvests the profit. This is predatory pricing updated for the digital age. Legal, scalable, devastatingly effective. Now look at Google. In 2015, Google restructured into Alphabet, a holding company. Alphabet owns Google Search, YouTube, Waymo, DeepMind, Verily, Calico, and dozens of other subsidiaries. This is the Standard Oil Trust, one parent entity controlling multiple operating companies. The structure provides liability protection. Each subsidiary's legal problems stay contained. It enables tax optimization. Profits can be moved between subsidiaries across jurisdictions to minimize tax burden. It complicates regulatory action. Which entity do you regulate, the parent or the subsidiaries? If you break up Alphabet, you create multiple companies that still dominate their markets, just like Standard Oil in 1911. Rockefeller solved this problem 140 years ago. Google copied the solution. Pharmaceutical companies learned Rockefeller's regulatory capture strategy. Rockefeller didn't just compete in markets, he shaped the rules. He lobbied for railroad regulations that benefited Standard Oil. He influenced kerosene quality standards that his refineries met but competitors couldn't match. He worked with politicians to structure regulations that protected his market position. Today, pharmaceutical companies operate identically. They fund FDA operations through user fees. They employ former FDA officials as executives and consultants. They lobby for patent extensions that keep generic competition off the market for years, beyond original patent terms. They write portions of the regulations they're supposedly governed by. Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, Merck. They're using Rockefeller's playbook. Control the regulators. Control the market. The financial sector uses holding company structures everywhere. JP Morgan Chase is a holding company owning Chase Bank, JP Morgan Investment Bank, and numerous subsidiaries. Bank of America, Citigroup, Wells Fargo, all holding companies. When Dodd-Frank attempted to regulate banks after the 2008 crisis, these structures made enforcement nearly impossible. Which entity carries the risk? Where does the liability sit? How do you prevent one subsidiary's problems from contaminating the parent? Rockefeller designed this structure in 1882. Banks implemented it 130 years later. But Rockefeller's most brilliant innovation wasn't corporate structure, it was legitimacy. By 1913, Rockefeller was the most hated man in America. Tarbell's expos had destroyed his reputation. He was called a robber baron, a ruthless tyrant, a man who crushed thousands of small businesses to build his empire. Rockefeller needed to transform public perception. His solution was the foundation. In 1913, he created the Rockefeller Foundation with an initial endowment of $250 million, over $7 billion in today's dollars. The foundation funded medical research, public health initiatives, and educational institutions. On the surface, this was pure charity, a wealthy man giving back. But examine the mechanics. The foundation provided massive tax advantages. Rockefeller's wealth transferred to the foundation tax-free. The foundation paid no taxes on its investments. He maintained control over how that wealth was deployed while avoiding estate taxes entirely. The foundation gave him influence over academia. Universities receiving Rockefeller grants taught what Rockefeller wanted taught. The foundation funded Johns Hopkins, University of Chicago, and Rockefeller University. It established the model for American medical education. That model emphasized pharmaceutical interventions, laboratory research, and specialized treatment. Alternative approaches were systematically defunded and marginalized. This isn't speculation. This is documented in the Flexner Report of 1910, funded by the Rockefeller Foundation. The report reshaped American medicine. Medical schools that didn't adopt the pharmaceutical model lost funding and closed. Within 20 years, American medicine became synonymous with pharmaceutical medicine, and pharmaceutical companies, many emerging from Standard Oil's chemical divisions, benefited enormously. But most importantly, the foundation bought legitimacy. The man who destroyed competitors became a philanthropist. The ruthless monopolist became a beloved benefactor. Within a decade, public perception shifted. Rockefeller was no longer the villain. He was the wise elder statesman, giving away his fortune for humanity's benefit. Every modern billionaire copied this strategy. Bill Gates founded the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation with $75 billion in assets. It influences global health policy, shapes who decisions, and impacts national governments worldwide. Mark Zuckerberg created the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative. Warren Buffett pledged most of his fortune to the Gates Foundation. These foundations provide tax benefits, legacy building, and policy influence. Rockefeller invented the model. Modern tech billionaires perfected it. The Rockefeller family remains influential today. David Rockefeller, John D's grandson, died in 2017 at age 1. For 50 years, he was chairman of Chase Manhattan Bank and one of the most powerful figures in global finance. The family's wealth, estimated at $11 billion, is distributed across hundreds of trusts and foundations. They still fund research, influence policy, and shape politics. 155 years after John D. started Standard Oil. Now let me show you how this system extracts wealth from you personally. You need gasoline. You choose between Exxon, Chevron, BP, Shell. All of them are descendants of Standard Oil or use its methods. All of them coordinate pricing as oligopolies. You're not making a choice. You're selecting between branches of the same tree. The illusion of competition masks consolidated control. You need to buy products online. Amazon dominates through vertical integration and horizontal consolidation. Walmart and Target must match Amazon's scale or die. You're choosing between companies using identical strategies. Same system, different logos. You need internet search. Google controls 92% of global search traffic. That's higher than Standard Oil's peak of 91%. But Google isn't considered a monopoly because the service is free. You pay with your data instead of cash. Rockefeller would admire this innovation. A monopoly so complete that users don't realize they're the product being sold. You need social media. Facebook has 3 billion users. Instagram is Facebook. WhatsApp is Facebook. You're not choosing platforms. You're choosing which meta property to use. Horizontal consolidation. Exactly like Rockefeller in 1872. You need healthcare. You see a doctor trained in a medical system shaped by Rockefeller Foundation funding. You receive pharmaceuticals developed by companies using regulatory structures pioneered by Standard Oil's successors. You pay insurance companies organized as holding companies using Rockefeller's corporate architecture. Every step extracts value. Every choice is predetermined. The average American household spends approximately $3,800 yearly on gasoline, $3,200 yearly on Amazon purchases, $12,500 yearly on healthcare beyond insurance premiums, $2,800 yearly on internet and technology services. That's $22,300 annually flowing to corporations using Rockefeller's methods. Over 40 years, that's $892,000 of wealth transfer, not to innovative startups, not to small businesses, to monopolistic corporations executing 155-year-old strategies to eliminate competition and maximize extraction. And you cannot avoid it. You could refuse gasoline, but employment requires transportation. You could refuse Amazon, but competitive pricing makes alternatives expensive. You could refuse Google, but what search engine has comparable results? You could refuse Meta, but social connection is controlled by their platforms. You could refuse pharmaceutical medicine, but insurance coverage, medical licensing, and cultural acceptance are all structured around the Rockefeller model. This is Rockefeller's ultimate achievement, not becoming the richest man in history, building a system where escape is impossible, a system where every path leads back to consolidated corporate control, where competition is crushed before threatening established players, where regulators protect incumbents instead of consumers, where philanthropy purchases influence that perpetuates the structure. You live inside this system whether you recognize it or not. But here's what most people miss. The system isn't evil. It's efficient. Vertical integration genuinely reduces costs. Horizontal consolidation does eliminate wasteful duplication. Regulatory capture provides market stability. Foundations do fund legitimate research. The system works. It delivers products cheaper, faster, and more reliably than fragmented competition. Before Standard Oil, kerosene cost 58 cents per gallon. After Rockefeller's efficiency improvements, it dropped to 8 cents, an 86% price reduction. That's not exploitation. That's efficiency benefiting consumers. Amazon delivers products in 48 hours. Google answers queries in milliseconds. Exxon produces gasoline at massive scale. Pfizer develops life-saving medications. The system generates genuine value. The problem isn't that it fails. The problem is wealth concentration. You get cheap gasoline, fast delivery, instant information, and effective medicine. Rockefeller's heirs accumulated trillions. Both statements are true simultaneously, so what's your response? How do you operate inside a system you cannot escape? You have 3 options. First, accept it. Recognize that consolidation is a feature of mature capitalism, not a flaw. Use the efficiencies the system provides. Buy from Amazon? Use Google. Accept that wealth will concentrate at the top, while prices drop at the bottom. Support antitrust enforcement. Purchase from small businesses even when costs are higher. Use inferior alternatives on principle. Vote for politicians promising to break monopolies. Make the system less efficient in exchange for less consolidation. Third, understand it and position strategically. If you cannot escape the system, benefit from it. Purchase equity in the companies that dominate. If the system extracts wealth from everyone and concentrates it in Exxon, Amazon, Google, Pfizer, and JPMorgan, own those companies. This is what Rockefeller did. He owned Standard Oil while everyone else bought its products. He extracted wealth from the system he built. You can replicate this, not at his scale, but proportionally. Own the extractors instead of being extracted from. This isn't investment advice. This is pattern recognition. The Rockefeller system has concentrated wealth for 155 years. It will continue because it's embedded in corporate law, tax code, and regulatory frameworks. Fighting it is exhausting. Escaping it is impossible. Understanding it and positioning within it is pragmatic. John D. Rockefeller died in 1937 at age 97. He lived long enough to see Standard Oil broken apart, reconsolidate, and spread its methods across every industry. He lived long enough to see his foundation reshape medicine and education. He lived long enough to see his descendants positioned at the peak of American finance and power. He built a system that has outlived him by 88 years and will outlive all of us. The system is vertical integration, horizontal consolidation, holding company structures, regulatory capture, and philanthropic legitimacy. It started with Standard Oil in 1870. It spread to steel, railroads, sugar, tobacco, then automobiles, electronics, pharmaceuticals, technology. Now it dominates every sector of advanced economies. You cannot escape it. You can only understand it. Rockefeller famously said, "Competition is a sin." Most people interpret that as greed. Rockefeller meant it theologically. Competition is wasteful. It duplicates effort. It destroys capital. Consolidation is righteous. It creates efficiency. It serves consumers through lower prices and better products. Monopoly isn't theft. It's the natural endpoint of efficient markets. This was Rockefeller's worldview, and he built a system to enforce it. 155 years later, we inhabit that system. Amazon eliminates retail competition. Google eliminates search competition. Meta eliminates social media competition. Exxon, Chevron, and BP control oil. Pfizer, Merck, and Johnson & Johnson control pharmaceuticals. JP Morgan, Bank of America, and Citi control banking. The consolidation Rockefeller initiated has reached its logical conclusion. The endgame isn't thousands of competitors. It's 3 to 5 dominant players per industry, all executing Rockefeller's playbook, and consolidation accelerates. Every year, fewer companies control larger market shares. Every year, barriers to entry increase. Every year, the system becomes harder to penetrate. This is the Rockefeller system, not Standard Oil, the method. And the method is eternal because it works. If this breakdown revealed a system you hadn't fully seen before, if you now understand that the corporate structures controlling your economic reality were designed by one man 155 years ago, do me a favor, subscribe to Finance Folder, hit that like button, because understanding the system is step 1. You cannot escape the Rockefeller system, but you can see it, and seeing it changes everything. John D. Rockefeller created a system you cannot escape: vertical integration, horizontal consolidation, holding companies, regulatory capture, philanthropic influence. That system is the modern economy, and you live inside it every single day. Welcome to Rockefeller's world.